listen to Jay and Silent Bob Get Old on at work, and
Which is great, by the way. I
yeah,
listen to it on the way to work sometime every now and again.
oh yeah, I love it. I love it. Those guys are just characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've noticed that my phone it'll pause so that way it could catch the stream, and then it'll start back up, and like 10 minutes later it'll pause again. It never used to do that before when the Cricket Towers were still up and running.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they it got worse.
Yeah, and AT&T, I like I said, they got worse because I remember when I was on Singular, it was amazing, and then AT&T bought it, and data started getting slow, and then they started doing the tiered data pricing, which, in fairness, probably due to the massive FCC fine they just paid, they now say if you have unlimited, they're not going to slow your shit down until you've used like 22 gigabytes of data, which is a massive amount for anybody. But
Mm.
yeah, I remember when that used to be just a nightmare. It's like you'd get this threatening text message, and it's like you've used 3 gigabytes of data because your Wi-Fi sucks at your workplace. You may experience slow download speeds from like here until your next billing cycle. It's like, oh crap. And obviously you couldn't legally do that, but I guess now you can. I don't know. But
Yeah, yeah. I noticed I go through mine. I only have like I think it's like 5 gigabytes
mhm.
of data, but I mean, uh, I never used to fly through it that quick, and
Yeah.
now I am. And so I'll get messages before my month is up, saying
Mhm.
that I've almost have used it up,
Well,
and
nowadays there's just so much consumption. I mean, you get GPS, you start watching things on YouTube. A lot of games are online connected
People
on the
saving for
iPhone.
retina. Ah.
Yeah. I mean that stuff just flies through. I can't see. I mean, maybe my mother can get away with using like a small data plan, but I can't see anybody who uses a smartphone at its full capability, like using that little data, unless you're constantly connected to Wi-Fi, which I'm not. Um,
mm,
uh, you know, it's just weird.
yeah, I know the feeling. We don't have Wi-Fi at my work, and the only place I do have it is here at my house. And that's the only time I can. Well, that's the only time I can use Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
Other than that, I'm using my data.
Yeah, and and it's interesting how much, because you don't think of cell phones as being like a very bandwidth heavy thing, and then I was at Dragon Con, of course, and Sindel and I were trying to post things to Instagram, we're trying to keep things going on, and even though it was full bars or full balls if you're on the iPhone now, um, LTE, all the whiz bangs, it would still take like 5 minutes to upload a photo on Instagram.
Oh wow.
and I was talking to somebody else. I'm like, it is so slow in Atlanta, and they're like, we got to realize there's 70,000 people at Dragon Con. There's so many tens of thousands of people at the Georgia Dome right next door. There's no bandwidth to really spare to anybody right now.
Mm, yeah.
Which you don't think about that, but when you get a concentration of people like that, especially, I mean, even in a big city, it just doesn't really calculate. They don't really think for that kind of thing.
Unless you're
Yeah.
in South Korea.
Unless you're in South Korea. Okay, no American city thinks that through. In Asia they have like 800 megabit of second internet or something ridiculous nowadays.
They're 24 megabits per second average
Yeah,
in Korea.
which is
Wow,
And
that's pretty fast.
I didn't even use my data plan in
Wow.
Korea. There was so much Wi-Fi everywhere, free. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Do they use fiber optic over there?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure what. I just know that it was really, really fast, and it was everywhere. And
I know Japan does. So maybe that, because I know in those countries obviously there's not as much real estate to cover, so they can run fiber optic, or at the very least run fewer relays to the fiber optic. So even if it's copper, because you have a shorter distance, it's going to be faster too. Because I know Japan basically has like 2 fiber optic lines going straight down the entire continent,
Uh-huh.
but they're only like 300 miles long. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it was
yeah.
still awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm definitely not knocking that. The people who are the cities that are on Google Fiber are kind of experiencing what Japan has always had, and hopefully will have eventually too. which is
They
amazing.
added like 2 or 3 more cities. Atlanta is on the list now.
Atlanta is well deserved. If I could, of all the southern cities that they could possibly consider, Atlanta is probably the most deserving of it because it's basically the New York of the South. So it could definitely make some good use of it.
Yeah.
But that's low hanging fruit. I don't think anybody's going to argue that. No one's going to be like, well, Orlando or Birmingham needs it more than Atlanta. No, it doesn't.
No.
It does not. If your city does not have an IKEA next to it, then you probably can't. You probably don't need Google Fiber right now. That's arguable, by the way. No, because that's a big thing in Birmingham. That's like our most requested retail thing is IKEA, but you have to the service area for IKEA has to cover like 1.5 million people or something. Birmingham is never going to get that many people. They're just not. Or they could. I don't know. Yeah. If they find a way to allocate money for roads. That's been a big debate over here as Alabama is kind of short of money right now. It's a horrible discussion to hear about on the news. And they've had to pull money out of different budgets, and it's interesting because I just don't know how you get to that point in politics. Look at the budget, and it's like, oh, we're short $200 million.
Really? And this is for the Star Wars toys?
No. This is the Alabama state budget. Someone figured out early this year that next year's state budget is going to be like $200 million short. And it's like, how do you just stumble across this? Like, oh my God. Anyway. We're not a political cast, but I'm still boggled by it. It's like you had one job, Treasury Department. What the hell?
Yeah, really. Yeah.
Anyway, where were we? Not talking about government. talking about the Republican debates. What?
No, I will say for geek reasons, there is a really bad. If you're familiar with bad lip reading.
Mm-hmm.
Their YouTube channel, they did the Republican debates.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's hilarious. I definitely recommend.
I was just waiting for the dubstep remix.
What, do they add their own words to it, or do they really?
It's bad lip reading, and it's just hilarious because they'll do like the NFL and Twilight and the Avengers. Oh my gosh, the Avengers one is hilarious.
So it's kind of like Djibouti dubs, but instead of commercials, they're doing everything else. Oh, dead silence. Oh no, Djibouti dubs basically does the same thing, but for like Billy Mays commercials. It's hilarious. Watch it. He does a just hilarious one for Cash for Gold, and he does all the voices. He does MC Hammer. Just it's fantastic. I don't know if he's still at it because I know he's had at least one shutdown by lawyers for obvious reasons. But I hope it's still going. I haven't checked it in a while, but I remember I used to way back in the day. Way back in the day, about 5 minutes ago, No, I love that stuff. It's one of the reasons I love CinemaSin so much on YouTube is because pardon me, is because at the end of the video, after he's done like bitching and moaning about about the movies, he'll pull like key scenes and then he'll overdub another movie over it. Like he did one for Insurgent, and he put like Con Air or something over it. It was hilarious. But I love stuff like that. That could be a whole podcast issue just talking about like our favorite other random shit on the internet.
Yeah,
that should be a required episode for any podcast.
Redneck Avengers on bad lip reading is just amazing. That's one of the finest things they've ever done.
Nice.
The Twilights were kind of up there, and now I'm just like Redneck Avengers.
Nice. Love it. Well, some updates. We finally got a podcast editor for Radio Free Geek, and he is pretty damn awesome. Like, I sent him a bunch of stuff yesterday, and he said he'd have a 4-day turnaround, and he emailed them to me this morning.
Ah!
It's like, holy shit, dude. apparently you had nothing to do on a Saturday, but we appreciate it. Like that,
Cool.
it's awesome turnaround. It's a decent rate. I booked him through Freelancer, and I don't know if there's a way to set up like recurring stuff through Freelancer, but I'm gonna work that out. But it's gonna be awesome. Trying to get if you guys are familiar with some of our other episodes, you the viewer, we've been talking about doing video content, Twitch streaming, all this kind of stuff. I've actually got a kind of plan set up for about that. I'm trying to book creatives and people at conventions to. I'm going to PAX and might be going to CincyCon next year as well as DragonCon, and trying to get interviews and sound bites or at least talk to people about doing future ones at conventions. Had a great time doing that at DragonCon. There's a lot of comic book artists that you could find anywhere, basically. I talked to a random publisher and writer in line for Felicia Day. So it's one of those things about conventions. There's 70,000 people. That's 69,000. Potential people you could talk to. The other 999 don't matter, right?
Yeah.
No, Robert does not know how to count right now. I'm not getting paid. But no, it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna try to push that again. Going to try to add some video content. Found a couple of potential videographers in the Birmingham area to do the first kind of season of Radio Free Creative, where we'll do video stuff and hopefully expand that to doing author interviews, all the stuff that we've wanted to talk about for a while. I got some momentum going for that. Gave Felicia Day our wonderful vintage Geek T-shirt. It's got a TV that says Radio Free Geek, has the Geek bot down in the bottom of it where the dials are. Anyway, so gave that to her. Hopefully that'll show up soon. I mean, she's just coming off of a book tour, so that's probably one of thousands of other things people gave her. But hopefully that'll get some airtime on her channel because she's doing a video basically showing off all the crap she got. Mm-hmm. So hopefully our garbage is somewhere in there. Met Kelly Sue DeConnick, by the way, at DragonCon. She's like talking to a messiah. If you guys don't know her, she is responsible for kind of the second volume of Captain Marvel. She's also doing Carol Danvers or Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps as part of the Marvel Secret Wars turnover. She's also responsible for Bitch Planet and Pretty Deadly. And her husband is responsible for Sex Criminals. All these are creator-owned content, and they're fantastic. I went to their first panel, not knowing anything about any of this after, besides Captain Marvel, and it was just amazing hearing about the reasons behind it and kind of their, working together, because they do write very different material, but they do work together a lot. And it was cool. She and she hangs out and talks to people. She's got a very passionate following. It was just like talking to a messiah. She just comes out and was very, very encouraging about people making content. Because she said numerous times through the 2 or 3 panels I saw with her that it's better to make shit and call yourself a writer or a creator than have a great idea and die a dreamer that no one knows about. And
right.
It's great, if I could pull her away from Bitch Planet or whatever she's writing on now and get her on the show, that would be amazing, because her entire philosophy of creating is just fantastic. It's basically get it out there, don't worry about if it's perfect. You can, there's always another one. It's great.
And Robert, I was going to ask you, on this Google Hangouts, how can people? Because I've heard you say before that people can get in here while we're doing this podcast and can conversate with us. How do they do that? How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, if you guys are just turning into the podcast, there is you probably have noticed my Twitter account at BrianGo44. I'll hashtag it with I just can't breathe today. I'll hashtag it with Radio Free Geek and also the topics we're talking about, and I'll post a link to it, and I'll actually post that right now. That I'll post that to the Facebook chat that we're doing too. But basically, you can log into it if you're a Google user, which, let's be honest, who isn't nowadays? You can log in. You can log into Google or Google Plus. It's managed through Google Plus, so sorry about that. It's even more convoluted to start and host one of these, especially if it's not your primary YouTube or Google Plus account, because I've got a sub-account for Radio Free Geek, which is why I have the logo or the shirt design instead of my face. It's convoluted for us, too. So Sorry. But you can log in, and there's actually a showcase. Google Hangouts is very good at having numerous applications. The one you're interested in, if you're a viewer, is there's an application. It's a word bubble. It says Q&A. You can click on that, and also click on the one above it that's got tickets that says Showcase. You can see what we're sharing in Showcase, and you can ask us questions and comment on things during with the Q&A app. And there's also some other ones like Control Room and Cameraman that I just don't care about. But Google is interesting because they overcomplicate the interface. They're a little sketch. But those are the handy ones. The link that I always send you guys to dial in is of course the guest ones. If we when we do interviews, that will be the link we get people to sign in, and then make sure that item is showed, and then that link will be what people log into to see us. So if you like it, if you like hearing us on YouTube, you can click on that link and come to us live and watch the chaos unfold.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, podcast. We're not organized, but we're kind of like a discountnerdist.com, especially when and if we start getting guests in here, it'll be a little more conversational and free flowing, but not as free flowing as the old episodes are. I think we're finally hitting a stride where we can get this within an hour, give or take some minutes. Because I remember the first episodes we did were like meandering into like the 2-hour mark.
yeah, they were over the 2 hours. Yeah.
But just like starting anything else, it comes to practice. So it I do have this. I have a hacked Pomodoro timer for this, which basically scolds me every 15 minutes, which is when I should change subjects. It actually has a feature on it. It's a little app called Pomodoro One. It's great. It's free, unless you want to give them money, which I strongly advise not to. I think the extra $5 to get you an Apple Watch app, which I don't think anybody cares about. But it God, I can't breathe. But you can set a custom time. This one's set to flip over every 15 minutes. You can set it if you work on the Pomodoro method. You can work for 45 minutes, take a 15-minute break. Anyway, it's great. I use it in the office all the time, and thought why not use it at Ready for Geek. So hopefully that'll get us. On track. Speaking of the actual podcast, right? We do have some geek-related news. In case if you guys read comics, I know I'm a big comic reader. I don't know about you guys. I have a hunch you guys are. I know Jesse probably is, or maybe it's manga.
Yeah.
If you guys read literature or comics in any form, you might have heard of a guy named Neil Gaiman who wrote a slightly independent book you might have heard of called Sandman. Probably never heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah, currently starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt in a show or a movie that is being produced as we speak. Anyway, before he really got known doing Sandman, as most writers experience, they kind of get everything. They kind of do a little bit of everything before they get well known. Neil Gaiman is the antithesis of that. He wrote a ton of stuff before anybody noticed him. There's a lot of rarities, a lot of old stuff, but Humble Bundle for the next 3 or 4 days has a lot of they're all digital, but they're all Neil Gaiman rarities. You have things like Adventures in the Dream Trade, Gods and Tulips, Free Speeches, Angels and Visitations. Some things that have never been republished, have never been released in a digital form, are very hard to find in a physical form. It's not only a good anthology of things that Gaiman has written, there's also books by Alan. There's also stories by Alan Moore in Seven Deadly Sins. There's all these writers you may have heard of: Dave McKean, Alan Moore, Dave Gibbons. Just great stuff. It's basically an anthology of Gaiman, but also kind of the history of that era of comics in the early '80s, the early to mid '90s. And it's stuff that, you may have heard of Gaiman with American Gods and Sandman, Alan Moore, of course, with Watchmen, V for Vendetta. This is more of the stuff that you may not have heard of. And it's really great. Humble Bundle, you pay what you want. If you match more than the average, which I think is $19.45 right now, $19.45. You unlock another tier of books when they hit another. It's kind of like stretch goals in Kickstarter. When you hit a certain goal, they unlock more stuff. So the more people who are involved, the more stuff we all get. So everyone kind of profits from it. And it all goes to charity. This is not for profit. No one's getting any money that I'm aware of besides the charity. What it's supporting right now is the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, who of course are the people who, if you hear of comics getting banned, there was an issue with the Sandman getting banned in some high schools and colleges. Harry Potter, of course, is banned books month. Harry Potter, of course, gets banned all the time. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of books. The Comic Book Legal Defense Fund are the people who go out and kindly inform people legally that you can't do that. that you're destroying rights of free speech, that everyone has a right to see this, whether you agree with it or not. It's none of your business if someone wants to read it, so it should be available for everybody. So this money goes straight to them, and that is something that Neil's always been a big fan of, and it's something that any writer should support, whether or not you support to every other writer's views or not. You should want somebody to stick up for your views. So that goes to them. I know that sounds infomercially, but throw some money at it, get some rarities, support a great cause. That's what Humble Bundle's known for. If you like software, they have some great games. They recently put RPG Maker up for sale. They currently have Viking Medieval 2, kind of like a handful of lesser known, less than popular Steam games. It's always a grab bag, but it always goes to a good title, and you can get some damn good stuff for a pretty cheap price.
Yeah, you can. I can agree with that. I bought some games from Humble Bundle, and I like that very much.
Mm-hmm.
I bought some really big name games, like Battlefield 3, Dragon Age Origins, and then recently they had a bundle pack of Tom Clancy games, the Rainbow Six and the Splinter Cell, like that. And so yeah, and then the charity thing, they let you decide how much goes to charity, how much goes to Humble Bundle, and they have little gauges there, and you just adjust it to how much money you want to go where. And you pay what you want, pretty much.
And you always get, even if you max out the donation and pay a lot. Say you pay $40 for a bundle. A lot of times the price of admission for just one of those games is around that price. Especially if it's new, like Battlefield 3 is still pretty costly to grab. I think it's around $20. Well, that could be the price of that could be the price of it and 4 other things on Humble Bundle, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like Woot for software. You never know what you're going to get, but it's always pretty nice when you see it.
Exactly, and when I bought Battlefield 3, it came with I believe it was maybe 11 other games, and I only paid at that time. I think I only paid like $15, I think, for all those games.
It is quite nice.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, and I'll post a link to the show notes. Remember, there's about 3 to 4 more days to support the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. Of course, after that, Humble Bundle doesn't shut down. It just refreshes with another charity, another bundle of books that are probably just as good. So it's something to keep in your Twitter, your RSS feed, your email feed, and just keep visiting it frequently, because I know I do. And we're not sponsored by them, by the way. We just like it.
Yeah.
There's probably that one guy sitting there like, oh my gosh, they're probably going to pay so much money to say this. No, we are totally not. We're totally not sponsored by anybody.
And a little tip about Humble Bundle. Okay, at first they'll start out with say like 8 games, and then they say more games coming soon. And just hang on just a couple more days and watch that, and they'll throw out there 3 or 4 more games, and you can get all those games for whatever price you're going to pay. And I always do that. I always wait and see, and then go from there.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. Well, get on that, and everyone profits. So what's next on the list? Star Trek Beyond, for all the Trekkies out there. Which I'm a fan of the movie series. I'm not exactly, even though Netflix is hell-bent on me watching them, I'm not much of a Star Trek watcher, but I really enjoyed the movies. I really enjoyed Star Trek. I really enjoyed Star Trek Into Darkness. Benedict Cumberbatch can do no wrong, in my opinion. But the third one, Star Trek Beyond, has been pushed back to July 22nd. It was originally supposed to come out, I believe, on July 8th. It's coming out the same. It's coming out the same weekend as King Arthur and yet another Ice Age movie. So hopefully there's not too much. It's like, I mean, Ice Age is quickly becoming the new Land Before Time. I think it's like number 15 in the series or something.
I didn't even know they were making a new Ice Age.
Yeah.
What's different about this, though, is the Land Before Time movies, they got to a point where they were just direct-to-video.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe after the... I don't even know if the second
They literally
one,
had like 25 movies. I don't even know if I think the second one was direct-to-video.
each one of these are getting their own independent theatrical release. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, they've also had a TV show, possibly more than one TV show, and just, oh my goodness. Yeah, Ice Age is the gift that keeps on giving to DreamWorks. Is it DreamWorks?
I believe so.
I believe it is DreamWorks. Maybe. Yeah, let me just Wikipedia that really quick. Ice Age franchise is produced by...
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. I could have sworn... A division of 20th Century Fox. I mean, you could have. Okay. I mean, you could have easily branded this with DreamWorks, and it looks just like something else that would fit in there.
Yeah, I knew it was Blue Sky, but I didn't know if Blue Sky was like owned by.
It's 20th Century Fox. It's basically 20th Century Fox's version of DreamWorks, but that is the gift that keeps on giving. This is the 5th Ice Age theatrical movie. There's also been 3 short films, numerous television specials, and no TV show. Even though I thought there was one, I might have been thinking about Madagascar for a minute.
I think you are. Yeah.
Which I think they're brushing up on like 6 sequels now too. My God. But as long as the penguins keep coming out, I'm fine with that. Anyway, obviously, Star Trek 3 is not facing very much competition that weekend.
No.
King Arthur may be good. I remember the one with Keira Knightley was damn good. But obviously, it's going to be a different audience potentially who would watch that versus Star Trek, maybe.
Right. I think
yeah.
That sounds like a good weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a nice weekend. It's being produced for all the people who are afraid J.J. Abrams has completely jumped ship in favor of Star Wars. His studio Bad Robot is still producing. I think Simon Pegg is one of the co-writers of Star Trek 3 or Star Trek Beyond. So it's got a lot of representation. It's got a lot of talent in the bank, and hopefully they'll push it and make it as good as the other ones. But it's good to see them branching out. You know, they could have just as easily said, you know, JJ's not coming back, so we're not going to make a third one. But they've reached out and they're like, you know, we're gonna let someone else try it and see what happens. Now it could bomb, hopefully not, but I guess we'll wait and see. Star Trek Into Darkness grossed $467 million worldwide, so obviously it's kind of a cash cow. You know, people are going to pay to see it, and that's exactly what they want to hear. That's exactly what they want to see. If it had done like Pacific Rim, which I think only made $44 million worldwide, it would be shelved. Which unfortunately is the news with Pacific Rim. I was banking on Guillermo making a sequel, but Legendary is kind of changing homes. Legendary Pictures, and they had greenlit. I think they're moving from Warner Brothers to Universal. When they were under the Warner Brothers contract, they were like, okay, let's go ahead and make this. You know, it was good. Let's make it better. And Universal has kind of opted to shelving things that they don't consider financial hits. Pacific Rim, unfortunately, is one of those. But Guillermo is hell-bent, hell or high water to make that. So hopefully that'll come out soon. I wish he was that determined to make Hellboy 3. Which
I'm sorry, they were saying something that Pacific Rim 2 might not do it after all.
Mm-hmm.
And which is kind of bummer, you know.
Yeah.
I was hoping they would do it, and then there was rumor that they might put Godzilla in it, and I was like, okay, you know, I could see that.
Yeah, because Del Toro is a gigantic kaiju fan. If it's a giant monster, he probably will stick it in a movie just because it's a giant monster, no matter if it makes sense or not. But you know, it's not like Toro has done that before with Godzilla. A
Yeah.
lot of his best movies were massive crossovers.
Yeah. Well,
Arguably best movies.
if they're going to Americanize Godzilla, they really need to quit screwing it up, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and do the crossover with Pacific Rim. I think it would do some good, and especially with all the action. I thought Pacific Rim had quite a bit of action and really good visual effects, and a Godzilla crossover would have really, I think it would have really boosted it. You know, and but the main thing, don't screw it up.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's interesting to see the original Japanese producers, which I believe is Toro. I might not be saying that right. I'm wikiing it again. the original Godzilla producers, they have not really made many Godzilla movies over the past decade since the beginning of the 21st century, and they have announced. This is old news, but they have announced that they're going to make a series of Godzilla movies that are sequels to Gareth Edwards' Godzilla from was it last year or was it 2013? It was last year, I think. Yeah. Anyway, Gareth Edwards' amazing Godzilla movie. They've announced that Gareth Edwards, when he gets done with episode 8, is going to do a Godzilla 2, and then Toro is making their own that they're going to produce, they're going to work on, but it's sequels to the same movie that are within the same universe, which I think is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's
cool. Because it gives them the chance to be the traditional. Pardon me. Gonna have the editor's work cut out here in a minute because I cannot breathe today. But it cuts. It's interesting to see them because they're arguing because they are the bona fide dyed-in-the-wool masters of Godzilla, since that is their baby. That is what put them on the map with movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see them come back to their roots after doing things like Attack on Titan, which a lot of people hated because they said it just didn't feel right as a movie. They've gotten hit kind of hard with that kind of thing. The TV show they made didn't do. The Attack on Titan TV show didn't do good as well. So they're going back to the roots, and hopefully they can kind of redeem themselves. And then Gareth Edwards hopefully will kind of rise to the challenge. Hopefully they'll just keep one-upping each other every sequel. That's kind of what I want to see my Godzilla universe be.
Yeah, I agree. And I had also heard that they were going to go back to, I guess, the original way they made Godzilla, which was man in a costume.
Which arguably is what they're best known for. They said that the CGI they used for Attack on Titan didn't look good enough, wasn't really as edited, as polished as it could be, but some of the fight scenes in it were obviously guys in suits, and that's where these guys really shine in their production value and everything, because that's what they're known for. So why not play to your strengths? I mean, that's exactly what they should do.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
They should. And then now there's talk of a remake of Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And these are the remakes that I really that I'm okay with, because they it's things that you could tell they had a vision with it, but they didn't have the technology or the means to really accomplish that vision in the 60s and the 70s. They didn't really, and I mean, they only had like a $40 budget on some of these movies, on most of these movies actually. So it would be, I'm perfectly fine with revisiting it with the same company, everything, kind of hitting that vision and hopefully accomplishing it the same way that in the way that they wanted to originally, which I think is fantastic. None of this like Hollywood, we're out of ideas, let's just remake this thing for the 5th time, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately is how they look at things. It's like, oh well, what's the I'm actually surprised they haven't made a Thundercats movie yet. They've made everything else. Let's see, they've made G.I. Joe, Michael Bay, who did Transformers. Which, by the way, did you know they're making an animated Transformers TV show that's going to fit into the Michael Bay universe?
Huh.
No, I didn't know that.
I don't know if it's traditional or CGI. They didn't mention that, but they said it was going to be an animated show that was going to play into. It's going to be a prequel to the Bayverse. And basically, it's going to explore kind of the root. Basically like the original show, it's going to explore the roots of where the Autobots, where the Decepticons came from, why they're at odds with each other, and hopefully we'll continue on. I don't even care if it's a remake existentially of the '80s cartoon. more Transformers to me aren't necessarily a bad thing. I think Michael Bay is.
Right.
Because the first one was great, and then it just kept getting more Michael Bay the more you went through.
Right.
And it's actually something we talked about in Timothy Zahn's writing workshop at DragonCon. It seems like Michael Bay is okay with making those until the day he dies, because he's got a formula down, for better or for worse, and he can just make them and make bazillions and not really have to worry about anything else, which unfortunately is quite true. But hopefully the series, much like the Clone Wars and the prequels, will kind of redeem a lot of the Michael Bay Transformers universe after the first one. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't think they have a release date for it, but I think the article I read was mentioning 2016, so hopefully soon.
So it's gonna kind of be like, say, for instance, like Star Wars Rebels.
Yeah, basically, it's looking at, it's like, okay, you know what happens now? We're not going to make a sequel because Michael Bay is already booked for 22 more. So let's go, like every other good movie series where we can't touch that, so let's go back in time and do a prequel. And if they do it right, it wouldn't even have to be beholden to Bay's movies, because the Transformers and the Autobots have existed for centuries, have existed for millennia. So it could be kind of like Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's set so far in the past that they don't have to be beholden to anything you're seeing happen nowadays. So hopefully they'll do that. Maybe they'll just wind up re-releasing the 80s cartoon and just calling it a day.
Yeah.
Remember when they did that in the 90s? They just added like shit CGI and re-released it as a new show.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's like, even when I was a kid, I was like, no, this is the same show, but I was okay with it.
That's funny. You reminded me of something that Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes are going to work on. They're going to work on another cartoon. Because they're going to do a sequel to.
Is it another Clerks cartoon, or?
No, it's not a Clerks cartoon. They did a cartoon recently.
I liked that show. It was the most tragically underrated thing, but I loved it.
I never saw it.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's so hard to find on DVD nowadays, but it's great.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look for that.
Yeah. But anyway, I could just mail you mine. Anyway,
they did a cartoon recently. It's called Jay and Silent Bob's Super Groovy Cartoon Movie. And
I'm not surprised at that title. That sounds so Kevin Smith.
Yeah, it does. It does. I've seen a little bit, and it's not a kid movie.
It never is.
No. But they're going to do a sequel to it, and one of the things they said on their podcast is at the end, I believe, of the Super Groovy movie, they take off in a time machine vehicle, and their objective is to stop Michael Bay from ruining their favorite child cartoons or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
That's their main objective in the next cartoon. So yeah, so keep an eye out for that.
That reminds me of an episode in Clerks where I think Dante or somebody gets wasn't Dante, was it Jay? It was one of them anyway. He gets arrested for like copyright infringement or something, and he calls like a bunch of people to the stage, and they're all, or a bunch of people, he's representing himself, so he calls a bunch of people to the witness stand, and they're all directors.
Oh, really?
And like the first one he calls to the stand is George Lucas, and he's like, and he talks to him about how crappy the movie was, and he's like, I want my $5 back. And he does this like 100 different directors, and the judge is finally like, are we going to get on with this case? And Jay is just sitting on like a pile of money he's gotten from all these directors. I love that, but I mean that's Kevin Smith at his best when he's making fun of popular culture, because that's one of the things he's most well known for. Besides, unfortunately, directing really shitty horror movies like Tusk.
I haven't seen that yet. I've been wanting to see it.
Awful. Oh, it is awful.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I can see where he's going from it. It's based on a sketch he did on one of his other shows, but as far as being a movie, and I'm sure I'm gonna get like skewered by this by some commenter somewhere, but so to me it just wasn't a good movie. But maybe that's what Kevin Smith was doing. Maybe he made a shitty movie ironically. I don't know. Smith does that. He likes to play games with people.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like Joss Whedon and Cabin in the Woods. Like he's screwing with you. because that's what you're there. That's what you're there to see.
Hmm.
So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was part of the game.
Well, he did talk about it in their podcast that he was making fun of it in another podcast with a couple of other guys, and they were just throwing ideas out there, and bing, it just popped in his head. Hey, I should write this. I should write this down and maybe do something with it. And
exactly.
eventually, well, they did. And
good.
So,
good for them. Kevin Smith, he's fantastic. It's he can do almost no wrong. He does sometimes, but I really like him as a writer and a director, because he doesn't seem like a guy who takes shit too seriously.
Well, this cartoon that they did, Kevin Smith wrote it, and he said he wrote it probably like 11 years ago, and he wrote it as like a comic book. And Jason Mewes, who is recovering from addiction,
of course.
Yeah, of course, and he's doing very well too. From as I listen to the podcast, I believe it's been over 5 years now that he's been clean and sober. Good. Anyways,
I'm still trying.
Yeah. And a couple years ago, when they started their podcast, Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, Jason Mewes asked him. He wanted something else. He wanted to stay busy and this and that, to keep his mind off the drugs and like that.
Yeah.
So Kevin Smith threw him the script, and because Jason Mewes told him, I want to produce something. So Kevin Smith gave him this story he wrote, which is the super groovy cartoon movie, and Jason Mewes produced it, and they made it into a cartoon. And so so Kevin Smith wrote it. That was all he did. He did some other touch up on the writing, but other than that, Jason Mewes produced it, and his wife helped him out too. And so
nice. So hopefully we'll see that soon too.
Oh yeah, and they're working on Clerks 3.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Clerks 2, a big complaint of mine about it was it felt like it had a little too much shit in it, but that's one thing that Smith and team is really well known for, is they kind of learn and try, and again, maybe he put too much shit in there, ironically.
Well, Kevin Smith has said that he only likes to do movies that have dialogue. He doesn't like doing anything with action. Action movies bore him to direct.
But that's okay, because he's known for doing dialogue-filled stuff now too. Like I feel if he came out, I feel if he announced like a kung fu movie or something that people wouldn't trust it. They'd be like, well, it's Kevin Smith doing an action movie. Are you really gonna pay money for this? I think it would implode and backfire, because people just aren't used to it. Like he's kind of cast himself as being a certain type of director, and it was strange.
Well, that's not a bad thing to be.
It's not a bad thing at all. No.
Yeah.
No.
And he makes fun of his movies, if they did bad, he jokes about it and stuff, but he still loves what he does.
Oh yeah.
And I can only respect him for that,
Which, now that I say that, I really kind of want to see Kevin Smith direct a kung fu movie.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't want to see him direct a kung fu movie too.
Oh man, again, future subject number 152, like movies we wish, what movies would we wish directors would make? Speaking of movies, I haven't expected to see too much of. M. Night Shyamalan. I never get his name right.
Yeah.
What? How is it?
Shyamalan.
Okay, I never know how to say it. Apparently, a lot of people have been saying The Visitor finally is a return to form for him. It's legitimately scary. It's legitimately twisty. It's legitimately not shit like The Village and like The Village and Avatar and a couple of other Lady in the Water was. So good. I actually forgot to care about the movie when I first saw it, because I'm like, oh, it's gonna be another Village thing. It's gonna be absolute crap. It's gonna be just horrible. I'm gonna guess the twist halfway through, like the village. It's gonna be an Amish village again or something like that. I don't know, but a lot of people are like, no, you should see this, which is fantastic because the previews have looked legitimately good, and I'm glad to see that a lot of people are saying that the hype is worth it this time around. So I may have to throw $10 at Shyamalan's way next weekend. Could I take my money? Take it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not a fan of his movies. I saw Signs when it came out.
Signs was another shit movie too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you're allergic to water, and when you decide to invade a place that's 75% water, like you're supposed to be higher intelligence than us.
I really liked The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense was good. I legitimately liked it. Like I remember seeing that in high school and being just fascinated at the amount of symbolism at the red coloring, and just being fascinated at the amount of layering and subtlety they had in it. And I was a fan of, and I was a big fan of it. I thought Signs was good. Yeah, I thought Signs was good when I saw it, but it wasn't as good as The Sixth Sense. And then it's one of those things like you watch it again and then you start ridiculing it, and then you're finally like, oh, that really is bad, isn't it? But it seems like after Sixth Sense it just went downhill from there. But it looks like it was just a valley and he's coming back up. So that's gonna be. Hopefully that's going to be fantastic. Speaking of things that are coming back that might be fantastic, we have 2 sequels that no one asked for coming out next week. Heroes Reborn and Minority Report, which are both interesting because everyone remembers Heroes. That's another thing Kevin Smith was really supportive of. Heroes came out in the early 21st century. It was this really ambitious kind of anti-superhero show that eventually, no thanks to the writer's strike, kind of devolved into a tropey superhero show that didn't really, after the first season, which was fantastic, by the way, just the ending of that was absolutely fantastic. But just like comic books, it seemed like they couldn't escape the hype or their own mythology.
Yeah.
So they kind of collapsed under their own weight, and they're bringing this back. Heroes Reborn. They have only a handful. I think they have maybe 3 or 4 people who are returning from the original show. It looks like the world's in a worse place. It looks like it's kind of like Civil War or kind of like the X-Men. You have the you have the continuation of this like superhero registration act that they passed and went through in the original series, kind of coming back to this new generation that's got powers, and that's really all we know about it. For better or for worse, the guy, the horn rim glasses guy, who is the iconic like cigarette smoking man of the show, is coming back to either save or get rid of them. We don't really know what he's up to. It looks like he may be on their side again, which is what he definitely was not in the original show. So it looks fantastic. Hopefully they have a whole new directorial cast. I don't know if Tim Sell's doing it again, but honestly, I'm okay with not having another guy who can do paintings in the show. It looks good. And then we have Minority Report that's coming out. That is a sequel to the Tom Cruise movie that came out. What is it, like 15 years ago? Because I think it came out right on 2000, isn't it?
I believe so.
Something like that.
Right around there somewhere. Yeah.
Well, this is a sequel to it. For people who don't remember Minority Report, the Tom Cruise was a member of what they called the pre-crime division. It's based on a fantastic Philip K. Dick short story, which he can do no wrong. He's also the guy who wrote Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which Ridley Scott turned into Blade Runner. I think he wrote AI. Basically, he wrote Paycheck, but we're not going to talk about that. Horrible movie. I think that was no, that was John Woo. It wasn't Michael Bay. I was about to blame Bay for a sin he did not commit. But Minority Report is fantastic. It's of course Steven Spielberg made it, created it, and this is a sequel to it. The pre-crime division were powered and informed by these 3. I think there were all three siblings or twins or triplets rather that were precognizant, that were clairvoyant. They could predict crime before it happened. And Tom Cruise, of course, would go and arrest them for crimes that they were about to commit. And, of course, he got framed for it, and that's that story. Minority Report, basically, the show, from what I understand, is you have these you have 2 of these precogs, 2 twins that are trying to inform police of things that are about to happen again, and they're trying to hunt them down. So it's like a procedural cop sci-fi show with this psychic kid. So that one seems a little shakier than say Heroes. It doesn't seem as locked in as another crime show that's coming out. And I have forgot what it's called, where the girls got tattoos all over and they're solving crimes with it.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that show called? Oh my god, that show seems a little fixed, because what happens when you run out of tattoo clues? This one at least seems open-ended, but it doesn't seem to have much structural weight underneath the scaffolding, because they're making a sequel they're making a sequel no one asked for 15 years after the original movie, and I say that, and I'm a fan of Blade Runner 2, which is like 30 years after the original, but still, it seems like a good concept on paper, but I guess we'll find out in a few days how well it works out in the real world. And I've said that before too. I said that about Mr. Robot, and it's one of my favorite shows so far this year. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch it. Christian Slater and what's his face? Blind Spot. Blind Spot. Or what?
Blind Spot.
Blind Spot. I kept saying Spot, and I was like, is it right? What? Did I say it right? No. Yeah. And a lot of these shows come out, and it sounds like they have amazing premises, but everything sounds good on paper, right? Then you stretch it out for 12, 24 episodes, multiple seasons. Lost was a good idea too until they stretched it out to 7 seasons. So hopefully these will come out. They both look really promising. The Heroes at least looks really solid. So we'll find out in about 4 days how both of those fared, and hopefully talk about that next episode.
Yeah. Well, Heroes is coming out almost at the perfect time. I mean, with that Registration Act, I mean, Captain America is right around the corner.
Yeah, and that might be a weird criticism of the show, because they have that ostensibly Batman versus Superman would be the government trying to control Superman because he, smashed the living shit out of Metropolis at the end of Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So you have all these superhero movies that are dealing with, and of course X-Men. That's been their wagon wheel forever, is discrimination and registration. Mutants are bad. Let's get rid of them all. Right. It's interesting. We have all of these movies all these movies and shows that are kind of converging on. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is doing the same thing too with the Inhumans. A lot of the cast members or a lot of the characters in the show have had varying opinions on we should try to help them or no, we should just kill them. And so it's interesting to see all these shows have basically the same thematic element. It's on one hand it's interesting to see how they all handle it, but on the other it might feel kind of tired. Everyone's kind of pulling from the same idea pool.
Right.
Yeah. But that's kind of the happenstance of doing that. In real world society, if someone woke up tomorrow and could fly or change time or something, you bet your ass, like the actual Senate, would stop arguing long enough to pass some kind of regulation about that.
Yeah.
Because you just don't understand it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be pretty scared too if something like that really happened. I mean, these aliens or mutants or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's all we don't understand. And it's just like what if the government is keeping or hiding aliens from us? Well, we don't understand what they're really about. That's why we're going to freak out. And,
yeah, exactly.
And and if they would gradually come out with something and say, okay, hey, this is what's going on, this is what they're about, and explain to us, or do something, and then we can be more understanding and say, okay, well, are they threatening, or are they, or are they here to help? One or the other. What is it? And so, but I can understand, especially like Superman. The Man of Steel. They destroyed a whole city just about, and it was just 2 men from 2 men that were aliens.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I watched a video before. I'm laughing at this because I watched a video beforehand that was how it should have ended on YouTube. They did a cover of Taylor Swift's Bad Blood, and it was Batman and Superman. And like later in the song, Batman tells Superman that Band-Aids don't fix building holes. Someone's got to pay for that, don't you know? Oh, it's fantastic. But yeah, exactly. Fear, especially when it's destructive fear, does drive people to try to regulate and control things. That's exactly what brings about civil war. Is after Ultron, people, basically everyone in the world just is telling the Avengers, we're tired of your shit, and we're going to try to control you, basically, if it follows the comic books, of course. Which maybe it won't, maybe it will. No one knows. No one's going to know until May. But it's interesting how they all handle that. X-Men, that's been their wagon wheel. The X-Men are nothing without, because if you think about them in the Marvel Comics universe, of course that's changing a little bit after Secret Wars, but they've always kind of kept to themselves, and their theme has always been about discrimination and control. I think they're probably arguably the most persecuted group in the Marvel universe, which of course might be low-hanging fruit because they're the most prevalent, the most controlled. The Avengers, in a lot of ways, were always kind of a black ops kind of thing. People were aware of Iron Man, but as far as most of the Avengers, like Hawkeye, it's normal people, and then the X-Men, of course, are the mutants. They're the ones people are afraid of. Which of course Bryan Singer has covered that, and the rest of the X-Men team has covered that since late '90s. So they're kind of the grandfathers of that. But of course X-Men Apocalypse is coming out, and that's going to be interesting too. There's a lot of movies coming out. Of course, that's a whole episode thing we've got coming up too. It's just when are too many superhero movies.
Yeah,
we hit that point.
Never.
Never ever. Fox, for its part, has said that because the Gambit movie is leaking cast and crew like a sieve. They basically said because Fantastic Four bombed, even though they're helping on making a sequel, that they're not beholden to creating a shared universe, which is something you don't hear many people say. A lot of people are like, "Oh my God, we have to have this universe everywhere." Oh my goodness. But Fox has been like, you know what? We don't need that. We don't need to do that. We need to focus on our own stuff, and basically go through that. So kudos to them. Hopefully, X-Men will be the gift that keeps on giving to them. Even though I do want to see Wolverine and the Avengers one of these days. God willing, the creek don't rise.
Yeah, it's too bad they couldn't.
They could just make him. They could just make him and say he's an Inhuman, or use X-22 or something. Something that Fox doesn't have the rights to.
Yeah.
Old man Logan.
Yeah, but it's too bad they couldn't do it while Hugh Jackman was still hot as Wolverine.
That being said, the fact that he has been able to maintain that physique, because Hugh Jackman, I love the guy, but he is not exactly a young fella anymore.
Well, and he survived cancer.
Well, he's not as old as I thought. I was thinking 50s, but he's 46. He did survive cancer, but just going through all of that, just like Christian Bale being Batman, just going through all that and still having ripped abs, veiny muscles, climbing up walls, doing a lot of your own stunts. Kudos to the guy to have maintained through. I think Apocalypse will be his 7th appearance as Wolverine, and then he's going to do like one other Wolverine movie, and then he might be out. Of course, he says that every time he does it. He's like, I'm gonna do one more, and I'm done. And then he does like 2. And then he does like 4 other ones.
Well, he's probably just holding on to. I love Hugh Jackman to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only reason I went to go see Wolverine. Which it had its moments.
It had its moments until the end. Oh my God.
It had its moments till the end. I was mostly happy with that movie, but mostly because of Hugh Jackman.
It's like they say, the 4th act is always the hardest thing to write. Unfortunately, I don't think that one got edited at all.
No. Well, and I think it's just one of those.
But it's better than Origins.
He's just not committing because he doesn't know if he can do it. Because it is a pretty challenging role. At any moment his body could just tell him no.
Yeah.
He can't do it anymore.
Yeah, so eventually you do have a limit. That's right.
Well, yeah. Well, hopefully he doesn't have a heart attack in Wolverine 3 because fans want to see Berserker.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see Wolverine go berserk.
Yeah.
And so I'm I'm hoping he'll be able to, blast that temper and and still stay in one piece,
Yeah.
Because I like Hugh Jackman too. He seems like a really cool guy as far as a person wise. And Wolverine, they couldn't have gotten a better person to play Wolverine.
They really couldn't, especially at that time. He fit a certain sensibility that they had that fit the movies, and he has managed to adapt to the changing sensibilities. They could have easily said they need another guy who is going to be a more modern Wolverine, be in Days of Future Past, and he wrapped around the role and owned it like he should have, because Fox has gone out and said that Wolverine is the star, for better or for worse, of the X-Men franchise, and they want to hang on to Wolverine, or they want to hang on to Hugh Jackman for as long as possible, and then when he's ready to go, swap him out with just as capable of an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Who that is anybody's guess, but they got some big claws to fill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. That is very true.
That's gonna be fantastic. Hugh Jackman, man, he's another actor that can do no wrong. I mean, you see him in movie. I mean, you see him in Wolverine, and then he'll turn around to do things like Les Miserables. How do how do you pronounce that? Is it Les Miserables? Les Miserables.
Yeah.
That tells you how much I've listened. I've listened to the musical. I'm not gonna say care, because I do like it. I've just never paid attention to it.
Yeah.
But he'll turn around to do movies like that, and then he'll do what is that one? Michael Caine, The Prestige.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I mean, he can do absolutely no wrong. Everything he does. I mean the Fountain, which is also a comic book movie. Fantastic graphic novel. But by all intents and purposes, it shouldn't have been a well-made movie. But because it's such a strange story. Wrapping your head around the Fountain of Youth is not, especially in such a trippy fashion as the graphic novel did, is a tall order. And Hugh Jackman just nailed it for all I care. I mean, he is fantastic at everything.
That he's doing or did, which is going to be coming out soon, is Pan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think he's playing Blackbeard, I think.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And another group that made the Prestige good, Michael Caine. Oh my God, Michael Caine. But Christian Bale. I mean, those two guys just hate. You could tell as soon as they walked in the same room, they just hated each other, which I think is fantastic. It's people always talk about chemistry in romance movies. It's interesting to see chemistry between a hero and a villain. Robert Downey Jr. nailed that with oh God, what is that guy's name? In Sherlock Holmes 2, just you have that like anti-chemistry that happens, and it was fantastic watching Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale reach a boiling point in that movie.
Yeah, I bet anything.
David Bowie also helped, but still.
I bet anything, if Hugh Jackman was to play a really mean villain, I bet everybody would still love him.
Oh yeah. And I absolutely want to see him as a villain, because he's one of those guys who could go either way. He could play a good guy with evil intentions. He could play an evil guy with a good. He seems like a really grounded actor. He does stuff even when he's Wolverine. I mean, even in Origins, which was a total shit movie. So, yeah. I still love you, Deadpool.
Oh, I loved
Origins.
Love
you. Oh, I hated Origins. Just because of Deadpool. Oh. Hey, I understand why, but the movie was an action movie that was so tropey and so weird, but yet Hugh Jackman still made it believable in a lot of ways. You still felt for Wolverine and kind of and empathized with him in a lot of ways. You empathize with him a lot in The Wolverine, because you realize that he makes you believe in Wolverine. He makes you believe that being alive for that long makes you tired of everything. Like there's nothing that can make you that can bring you up from that. I mean you feel that. You feel that from him. And that's something that a lot of actors probably can't really do that well with a comic book style character. You see it all the time in the Marvel universe, but Hugh Jackman, really, if he hadn't have been believable as Wolverine back in 1998 when the original X-Men came out, no one would have cared. No one would have cared. It was 2000. I kept thinking 98, but 2000. he made it believable then, and I think he is one of the reasons why comic book movies are so serious nowadays. Why it paved the way for Kristen Bell, it paved the way for Robert Downey Jr. and everybody else that's come after that. Because the superhero movies before that were George Clooney as Batman and Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze.
Right.
So it was wide open to be campy, and he
were supposed to be campy though. I mean, one of the arguments that always bugs me about the Batman movies is that they're campy.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted them to be campy. Like it's a known fact that those were supposed to be ridiculous movies. The director wanted them to be that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the original director was Tim Burton, so campy is kind of his middle name.
Yeah. I mean, I know that Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, the director who did those, he specifically said that he was trying to pay homage back to the 50s?
Back to the Adam West era of Batman, yeah. Which is not a good, which is an interesting muse to have, and it's interesting because, Batman Forever I thought was a great movie. I thought Val Kilmer was fantastic as Batman. I thought he was a fantastic Bruce Wayne too, because he kind of nailed that kind of suave intelligence that I always kind of thought Bruce Wayne had. Michael Keaton did too. I thought Val Kilmer was a fantastic successor to Michael Keaton, but I can kind of see where they're coming from. But Batman Forever was okay. I thought it was fantastic. But Batman and Robin, I think it was. I don't even know if it was a bad movie necessarily. It definitely warrants a rewatch just to prove that to myself. I think they stuffed it full of too much stuff.
Mm.
I think it was one of those cases of feature creep, kind of like, a lot of kind of like everyone's fear with Batman versus Superman. They think there was just maybe a little too much shit going on in it.
Mm.
Because you had Mr. Freeze, you had Poison Ivy, you had Bane, you had Batgirl. And then you had Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
That's a lot of threads to tie together in two-ish hours.
Yeah, but I do agree. I do think that X-Men being as acceptable as it was, really paved the way for us to get more superhero movies. I do agree with that statement.
Definitely.
It's just you went straight for the Batman, and it was like
It's like hold up, we gotta talk about this.
Yeah, can we mention like the other superhero movies?
the other super movies.
The other superhero movies. What was that one with Billy Zane?
Which one?
Oh, it had Billy's in it. Oh, hold on. Okay, IMDb, save me. Hold on, I'll find it. He was the jerk from Titanic, if you remember. He was the one who was Rose's boyfriend.
Okay.
And the Phantom.
Oh.
That was the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was.
Oh my gosh, that is correct.
Superhero. That argument. There we go. Yeah, I won more geek points for the
All right. Speaking of movies, the Force Awakens has started. It's or more precisely, the journey to the Force Awakens has begun. We've talked about this a few episodes. It's a freaking deluge of literature. In 1 week, we've had Shattered Empire, which is their ongoing comic series that addresses things that come out, addresses everybody after Return of the Jedi, addresses the Rebels, addresses which they did a good job of focusing on more of the fighter pilots than. You had the obligatory conversations with Han Solo and Lando Calrissian. You had Luke Skywalker in there, but it focused more on a fighter squadron, which I think was interesting. You have Aftermath, who is Chuck Wendig, the first proper novel leading to Force Awakens. You have Uprising, which is a phone-based video game, RPG type thing that you're playing a rebel who is fighting the remnants of the Empire after Return of the Jedi. And they're showing the Empire is kind of not going down without a fight, which is very similar to the expanded universe. Of course, you don't have Thrawn or Mara Jade yet, maybe. maybe. Maybe they're there, but they're not mentioned by name yet. But it's basically the same thing. You have planets that are succeeding to the New Republic. You have the Empire blockading, clamping down on everybody else, and it's basically showing that Return of the Jedi was the start of the downfall of the Empire, but there's still a long, long way to go for the rebellion and the New Republic to gain ground and really become a functioning government again. And it's absolutely fantastic, and it's hopefully describing why there are stormtroopers 30 years later. But it's unfolding as it is. IO9 has a huge rundown of everything they know from the young adult books, from the novels, from Battlefronts, from everything. It's worth a read if you kind of want to save all the other reading. I guess if people just want to know versus experiencing it, to each his own. Chuck Wendig especially has come under fire recently for Aftermath. A lot of people, you read Goodreads, you read Amazon. There's a lot of people who really freaking hate Star Wars Aftermath because for various reasons, a lot of people say that his writing is junk, which his use of alliteration and exposition is a little odd. It's not what you're used to. He definitely doesn't write in the same style as like Timothy Zahn or Kevin J. Anderson or any of the other people that used to write the expanded universe stuff. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people have been hate spamming Goodreads and Amazon because they're still peeved at Disney for burning down the expanded universe in favor of their own. And a lot of other hate also derives from the fact that Chuck Wendig had decided to put a gay character in Star Wars. A lot of people are saying it's ruining Star Wars' family values. So he has come under some serious fire from basically all directions. And his response to that has basically been, if you don't support the use of gay characters in a free society, you're not the rebellion, you're the Empire. They shouldn't you shouldn't try to force them into something else. The rebellion would not fight for freedom and then not talk about different characters, the different cultures. He also mentions that his characters are basically all diverse. There's black, there's Spanish type characters. There is, he basically mentions there's everybody except white folks in his book, and then all the white dudes are the Empire. So he's seen all the diverse check marks that you need that he feels is important, but it's still interesting just to read the hate. There's a lot of people saying that they're not going to really support Star Wars as a whole because there's one gay character in it, and it's not even mentioned very heavily in the book. I think it's a throwaway line that he doesn't find women romantic, so it's not even like a plot point in the book really. It's just like a throwaway characterization, which in a 200 300 page book is kind of a frivolous. It's kind of a frivolous thing to latch onto, but
definitely.
Yeah, but just like it seems just like when they announced like Squirrel Girl, or not Squirrel Girl, but oh god, what's her name? We talked about this last episode. When they announced like Moon Girl was going to be a female and black, or when Kamala Khan was mentioned she was going to be Muslim. It seems like people latch on to a characterization point and don't really think about or try to understand everything else that character is in a story. What do you guys think about that?
I think that's a cancer that's been going on in our society for a while now. I don't know. It's almost like we so much information bombarding us that we're taking everything at face value. Like, I wonder how many people who sent him hate mail actually read the book and read that once. Yeah. Because all it would have taken one person to find the sentence, put something up on one of those blogs that they have, and then suddenly you've got 50 million people on, oh my god! That's like, not to be a girl here, but when T-Swift came out with Shake It Off, I don't know how many people, they just ticked me off because they're like, oh god, she's twerking. I'm like, yeah, along with every other form of dance in that entire video. Like, they just focused on that one thing, and then they didn't even try to, like, watch the video, God forbid, or anything like that. And I think it's happening everywhere. So this doesn't surprise me at all. There's my rant. That's my box for today.
That's okay. I was up on Twitter for a minute. I feel like you guys need to jump in on this. But yeah, I definitely agree. We live in a society where people will knee-jerk react and judge on anything and never seek to understand different viewpoints. It's there's a reason things, whether you agree with them or not, there's a reason things like feminist frequency exists. There's a reason why Gamergate exists. There's a reason why all that. And it's because in a lot of ways people are trying to have discussions and people are reacting to it and no one is trying to stop. This became a big discussion for a minute. No one's trying to stop and understand what everyone else is thinking. Like, there's not discussion about things. It's just people being like, blah, we should dump hate on this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I definitely agree with Chuck. You know, if you're one of those people who want to judge and not understand, you definitely are part of the empire. You know, well, without having to murder, 7,000, children like Darth Vader did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, something like that. I mean, I don't judge people on their preference or whatever. That's totally something different. It doesn't have anything to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
And but as far as putting it in, I haven't read the book, so I really can't say how much was put in there about it or anything like that. But if there is a hint of it in the book,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. This is Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's something that's not real.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all these characters, there's all these different aliens, and that doesn't bother me neither. I mean, white, black, Oriental, whatever. It doesn't bother me. I get along with everybody.
Yeah.
And that's just something that shouldn't be in a book like this, because there's children that probably read this book, and they're gonna say, well, what's this? What does this mean? This is something new, or and I don't know if parents are gonna like that.
But at the same time, there's a lot of other children's shows too that have addressed this too. There's famously there's John Barrowman, who, by the way, was wearing a TARDIS dress at DragonCon. It was amazing. There's famously John Barrowman as Jack Harkness, and what's his name, Spike from Buffy. Anyway, the time agents from Doctor Who are pansexual. They will bang anything.
Oh God.
Jack Harkness mentions that on numerous occasions, not only in Torchwood, which was the adult spinoff of Doctor Who, but he mentions that frequently in Doctor Who.
Oh wow!
There's a scene where they're filming, they're filming some show, and in the future, I think it was the season finale of Doctor Number 9's season. And John Barrowman is naked, and you see him in the back, and he goes, "Ladies, your ratings just went up." It was ridiculous. It was crazy, and the Doctor goes and sets him up with a dude at the end of one of his other seasons. But Doctor Who is well known for being a children's-based show. It does have a lot of reactions from kids and all that, and they address this situation too. And I don't remember of course, I didn't pay much attention to that part, but I don't recall this kind of reaction to Doctor Who, which is interesting because it seems like you would think it's almost like if they had like a gay Muppet, which Bert and Ernie is debatable, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Or go Avenue Q.
Oh God, Avenue Q.
That
was definitely pointed toward adults though. Forgot about Avenue Q.
True.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it's interesting. It's interesting that certain things. I guess Star Wars is known worldwide for doing this, and what a forum to kind of bring this up and mention, like, yeah, you can include people, it's diverse. And Star Wars is one of those things, kind of like Batman, where they can change Star Wars is ultimately a mirror on the sensibilities of whatever era they're in. You see Star Wars in Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. It captures a very 70s, a very 80s sensibility, not only in the way the stories are told, but the way they view people, the way they handle people, the way they do things. The prequels had a lot of world building, but they captured the modern at the time the modern sensibilities of, let's be more diverse, maybe, let's look at other things you have.
Well, in the prequels, I mean, they had such a reflection of the politics we were going through
Yeah.
at the time. I rewatched the prequels in anticipation for December, and I was sitting there like, oh my God, this is us trying to find weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it was all over the movie.
And that was a sensibility in a lot of science fiction at the time. Of course, Battlestar Galactica, that was a big thing in season 3. They had concentration camps, prison camps for the humans that the Cylons kept them in. But it seems like Star Wars, especially because it is such a long-lived series, it needs to mold to whatever sensibility it is. And of course, one of the big things in our current modern times, modern air quotes, is this idea of diversity, not only in race or sex, but in religion, in personal beliefs and everything. And I really think it's cool that Wendig is not afraid to basically tell people it's none of their business to care about inserting that character in there. I think it sets a precedent for maybe having that discussion later on in there, because Aftermath is intended to be an adult book, and I guess basically if you can't handle it, then that's your problem, not his. I would be interested in seeing the reaction if they'd put a gay character in one of the more young adult books or in one of the comic books. Which is interesting that is something they are addressing in Shattered Empire. There is an implied sex scene between a husband and wife fighter duo, and after the Battle of Endor. So they definitely appear to be approaching more mature topics. I guess I guess that's kind of the status quo Marvel might be angling towards. Force Awakens definitely doesn't feel like a light movie like Phantom Menace started out to be. From what we've seen of it so far, it seems to be a very dead serious movie, which of course J.J. Abrams is known for doing. So it's interesting in the clues that they're putting in there, and not only in spoiler type stuff, because Wendig does imply there is an interlude where he implies Boba Fett is alive. They find Mandalorian armor pitted with acid in a sandcrawler, but Fett or whoever it is nowhere to be found. There's a interlude about the black market sale of Anakin's lightsaber. It's like no one's talking about the stuff that's directly pointing to the movies. They're all honing in, like Jesse was saying, on this one line of dialogue.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's something that they should, put in something that's kid friendly. It's
interesting. They have notably never talked about religion, unless you count the forces of religion and the fact that Han Solo doesn't believe in it. They don't talk about things like religion either in the books, and they've been interestingly neutral about that. So it's interesting to see Chuck Wendig introduce a topic like this, because it would be, like I said, it's interesting to see how other writers handle this, how other writers go into it. It's definitely not something that I really recall the discussions having. Keep me honest with this, Jesse. I don't remember them having a discussion like this in the original Legends expanded universe. So it's definitely a precedent that's open, that I think they're leaving open to exploration, I guess.
Then again, the extended universe, you couldn't have gotten away with saying something like that in the 70s, 80s. I mean, this is probably the first time that Star Wars has had the ability to say something like this without being absolutely... I don't think it's necessarily a family values thing as much as, the extended novels back in the 70s and 80s, they had to be careful because you couldn't get away with that on anything. let alone a sci-fi fiction series.
Exactly, and again, that's the kind of sensibilities. Going back to Doctor Who and Torchwood, you definitely couldn't have, if Torchwood had existed in the 70s, you definitely could not have had that kind of conversation. Jack Harkness could never have been that flamboyant in the 70s. You see them going in the future, and they don't have that discussion at all. It's not that it doesn't exist; they just don't touch on it. So again, it's I guess existing in the sensibilities of the time you're in. Chuck Wendig doesn't strike me as a guy who gives a shit about other people's opinion. If he has a statement to say, he's going to say it, and if you have issue with it, that's your problem. So, kudos to him expressing his opinion. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's definitely the most polarizing response I've seen to Star Wars as of yet. For better or for worse, and then of course the other kind of beef people have with it, of course, is that it doesn't feature Luke or any of the main characters. I think the closest character to the movies that you see is Wedge Antilles. Admiral Akbar gets a hell of a lot of time in the book, which is great. He's kind of this grizzled war veteran.
Intertrap.
Yeah. What? What? What?
She was saying a line that Admiral Akbar said in the Jedi. Yeah, it's a trap.
Yeah. Oh my God. Akbar actually gets a lot of screen time per se in Heir to the Jedi, which is that Luke Skywalker book that I just can't fucking stand. But he gets a lot of airtime in that, and I was listening to the audiobook of that for a while, and the guy who voices Akbar, because they had different characters voice different things. The guy who voiced C-3PO was actually in the book. It was more like an audio drama, but the guy that got to voice Admiral Akbar sounded like he was doing a bad Richard Nixon impersonation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he'd be
that bad, huh?
I gotta lean back so somebody get loud. Like he would be talking to Luke, and he's like, "My boy, you need to go to the Narshada system and infiltrate the smugglers' paths." It was like hearing somebody read bad Shakespeare or do a bad Nixon impersonation.
Wow.
But I guess
I am not a crook.
Yeah, like it didn't sound like Akbar at all. I could see where they were trying to capture the spirit of it. They just didn't do it, and it was fantastic. And I kind of want to listen to the audiobook of Aftermath to see if it's the same guy, because it's hilarious for all the wrong reasons to hear it. I noticed we actually got a viewer, by the way. We got a live one, guys. First meet for the grinder. If you're on Hangouts, you'll notice there's on the interface on the left there'll be a chat function. Q&A I accidentally disabled when I launched this, so I don't think I'm able to relaunch it unless we end it and start it back. But if you want to interact and leave comments or questions or chime in, ask questions, hit the chat button and leave us that. Otherwise, tweet at me at BrownEagle44 on Twitter, and we'll try to answer as much stuff as we possibly can. But yeah, it's interesting. Star Wars has definitely taken an interesting turn. A lot of people have either lauded or hated the way they've treated characters in Shattered Empire and Aftermath, because you don't see many of the main characters. Shattered Empire, like I said, is gearing up to be more of a war story between the main characters are, like I said, a husband and wife team. One's a pilot, one's a soldier, and kind of their experiences right after Return of the Jedi. In the first episode, the first issue, they infiltrate. They find out there's another Imperial base that hasn't gotten the memo that the Death Star blew up. How you don't notice that if you're on the same planet, I have no clue. But they go and take that out, and it sets it up to be more of a war drama. It feels more like Battlestar Galactica than Star Wars in a lot of ways. More of a gritty in the trenches thing, and I really applaud Disney and Marvel so far for choosing to focus. They've done the same thing with Rebels, but choosing to focus on characters that aren't necessarily the core characters from the movies, which is something that the expanded universe never could get away from in a lot of ways. What do you think, Jesse? I know you got an opinion on that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
No,
maybe a few.
Again, I think that at least nowadays, we have a much more open opinion of lore.
Yes.
So that's been raised, especially with things like Harry Potter, where, you know, you have the main three, but then there's just all of these interesting side characters, and there's just a lot of things that support that. So it would make sense that you could get away with that in these books, because we're interested in the side characters. Not saying we're superficial in the 70s and 80s, but the fanfare around it. I mean, you wanted to read about Luke, you wanted to read about Han. You didn't really care about, you know, poor Biggs or Wedge or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's another symbol of how we've evolved as geekdom, I guess.
Yeah, which I think is interesting. It's yet another thing, kind of like Disney releasing the uncuts, which I still think the special edition was the best version, because that's when Lucas didn't fuck with it quite as much. But to each his own. But Disney is re-releasing the unedited theatrical cuts on, I believe, Netflix. You know, it's yet another way of Disney, you know, letting people know that we're different than Lucasfilm. We're not going to, you know, Clone Wars, they wanted to focus on other Jedi. They wanted to focus on characters that weren't Obi-Wan, that weren't Anakin. And Lucas said no. Lucas said no. You gotta focus on these people. The Star Wars, what is it? 1113, the video game that never got made, or 113.
Yeah.
They
13, I think it was.
Yeah, it was originally going to be about just some random smuggler, some random bounty hunter, and then Lucas is like, no, you gotta put Jedi in it, and then he's like, no, you gotta put Boba Fett in it. So it seemed like a lot. It seemed like Lucasfilm it seems like Lucasfilm under the Lucas administration could never or was never allowed to get away from those core fan service characters. And I think the expanded universe suffered for that. If they had written the expanded universe with just touching on points in those characters, but not having everything be about them, I think a lot more of the EU would have survived the Disney takeover of Lucasfilm. But because they have their own vision for these core characters and what's going to happen, of course, they're going to burn those bridges immediately to make way for their own vision.
That's a very, very good point. Very, very good point.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that initially, but I mean, you can't, if they have an entire, you know, plan for the core characters, every EU was about them, so everything would be destroyed. Which means we can blame George Lucas.
Not that we weren't anyway. But it's interesting how you can mold different characters to things. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons that I've had just a great time catching up on comic books after Dragon Con. You know, I went to see Kelly Sue. I went to see her panel, everything that she had to talk about, and I came back with like a bag full of Pretty Deadly and Bitch Planet comics, and they're fantastic. But one of the ones that really stuck out to me was Batman 44, which just came out this month, and it's not the power armored Batman. It's back when it's a young Batman within 5 years of what they call the Year Zero event, which is their new version of the Year One Batman that Frank Miller wrote. But it analyzes kind of Batman's psyche about things. But there's a part in the book that I thought was fantastic. It's a conversation that they don't really have in many comics that I think a lot of them do. A lot of them need to have. Which Batman thinks he can understand he can understand Gotham by solving a simple murder, which doesn't seem to be which is never as simple on paper as it is in reality, or is never as simple in reality as on paper. I'm screwing up my acronyms now, Jesse. My idioms, yes, I'm screwing up my idioms. I'm screwing up my vocabulary too. So, but Batman thinks that he can understand the city by solving a simple murder, and Scott Snyder, as Snyder is, his entire run with Batman has been that Batman does not understand the city as well as he does. He doesn't understand himself as well as he does. The most pointed ones have always been the Joker. And have been the two Joker runs, which of course is what ends Bruce Wayne's run as Batman in Endgame. It's the Endgame of Bruce Wayne, basically. and which paves the way for Gordon to take it over. Anyway, that's a whole nother sidebar. But there's a line, there's a page in the there's a page in the comic where he goes to interview a cop about this kid that got shot and killed. He's 15 years old. He's a black kid. He's in the Narrows. And the first thing the cop does is pull a gun on Batman. And he's trying to explain. He's like, I got called to a gang fight. You wouldn't understand. And Batman is thinking to himself in his narration, he doesn't want to hear it. It's too much to hear. He doesn't, you know, he knows cops get shot. He knows cops shoot kids. But that's not important because what's important to him is finding the guy that killed him, regardless of who it is. And that speaks volume a lot in this year, because it's Snyder explaining that Batman can exist in a brutal police culture, because Batman doesn't have to, you know, it's a corrupt system, but Batman can be above that. It's exactly like the Dark Knight when Michael Caine is talking to Kristen Bale. He tells him Batman can be whatever he needs to be, so long as he's doing what he set out to do. And I think that's an absolutely fantastic commentary. It's something that I don't see a lot of authors doing nowadays. And when you see it, it's fantastic. That's one of the reasons I love Kelly Sue. Her stuff is always commentary based. Bitch Planet is nothing without social commentary. besides a prison planet full of women. You know, she could have easily made it like a sci-fi Orange is the New Black, but she didn't. She's above that. She's not going to play to those tropes. Even when the characters act like they want them to play those tropes, they're not doing that. They're always trying to outsmart that system. But I think it's fantastic. I think that's the power of comics. I think that's the power of what it is. This is a conversation a lot of comics had in the wake of September 11th. You had that issue where Spider-Man comes up on the World Trade Center wreckage, and just it's interesting because, of course, comics are escapism. I'm gonna have to write a blog post about this. This is an enormous topic, but comics can and need to be social commentary, and Snyder's no stranger to that, which is about exploring the darker side of humanity that no one wants to talk about. And Batman, he's doing just the same thing with Batman. He's like, this is a topic that needs to be talked about, and I think it's interesting that he's taken a medium people don't take. I don't think popular culture takes seriously, and he's addressing a very, very serious topic about it. I think it's fantastic because Batman is, who better to talk about the dark and depressing topics than Batman, right? I mean, that's what he is.
Yeah. No, that's. Right. I mean, he's such a if anybody did cover those topics, I mean, it would be a good start.
Yeah. And I think that's
why. Be a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Happier ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's a topic that you couldn't see Superman talking about. You know, it's a topic that the original Thor can talk about too. I mean, Jane Foster is the new Thor. Spoiler alert. Jane Foster is the new Thor, and she has cancer. It's a dynamic that Odin's son couldn't talk about. I don't know if Asgardians can get cancer. But it's a dynamic because it's killing her to be Thor, but yet she's been called to be something higher, and it's fantastic when things like that happen. Not time rewind.
Not cancer.
Time rewind. It's not good to have cancer. It's good to have commentaries and change the dynamic. It changed the dynamic. I know a lot of people get fired. You know, DC is getting lit up because Gordon's Batman. Superman doesn't have powers. People are upset because Wolverine and Thor, who are the biggest, most masculine people in the Marvel universe, are now women. One of which has cancer, and she's dealing with that as well as being Thor. And I think Magina is like accelerating her cancer or something. I haven't read the Thor run, which is my fault. But it's all these dynamic topics that you couldn't talk about in the golden or Silver Age comics. Like you couldn't talk about, Thor having cancer or Batman talking to a cop that had shot a kid. In the in even as far back as the 90s, probably. Maybe
definitely.
Maybe in the 90s, maybe, possibly not in the 80s.
We wouldn't.
Of course, Frank Miller wrote a lot more in the 80s, so you never know. Yeah. Yeah, you would have heard about it. But it's it's fantastic. It's a lot of books, a lot of creator-owned books are starting to kind of are kind of starting to cross the social commentary line. Scott Snyder with Witches, Descender, is about messing with technology that you don't understand. In their case, they're creating robots, and it eventually causes basically an apocalypse across this galactic United Nations. Afterlife with Archie, of course, is magic creating a zombie apocalypse. A lot of it is about widespread human nature and what they mess up. But it's interesting to have those last comments. It's something that books do a lot of and movies do okay with. But you never really hear of anybody making a statement with that. And even if it's a statement that only you glean about something. I remember Kelly Sue DeConnick's Captain Marvel 15 was about Carol Danvers dealing with the death of somebody. It's the first thing I read after dealing with my grandmother's death in March. And that was her way of writing it. She writes this big essay. I believe it was someone else had passed away. I'm not going to pretend to know who it was. I want to say it was her aunt or something. That was her way of dealing with it. And it's interesting how things can speak to you about that. Even if you're the only one who, I'm like vocally drafting this in my head now. But even if you're the only one who gets that message, it's still fantastic that creative mediums have a way to speak to you like that. Even if it doesn't get memed on Facebook.
Well, even if it wasn't, it's crazy how it can do that. The intention to do that. I remember Juno hitting me rather hard because I happened to be coming out of a break at the time. So just the conversation pieces between like her and Dad about relationship hit me harder than I think they were intending to, just because I was so fresh out of a breakup. It was very therapeutic, which is kind of funny. But it sometimes it can just hit you.
Yeah, it's true.
Without the intended effect.
Yeah, without the intended effect, it's exactly like a piece of art should be. You bring your own experiences to it and project it on the characters, and take your own meaning from it. And that's fantastic when it's done right.
Hopefully, it's not. Because it can hit you the other way too.
Mm-hmm.
Like Enchanted, when I first Enchanted, again I was coming off of a breakup.
Yeah.
So that movie didn't hit me very well.
I can imagine, right? And then you have Frozen, which makes people want to hit things. But it's fantastic. It doesn't have to be a dark thing either. But I think but Batman hits it in such a way, and it's probably my favorite issue of Batman yet, because it shows Snyder writing. And there's not even much action in it. It shows Batman being a little fucked up too. There was a scene. You know how like Batman and Batman Begins will like hang a dude over a ledge and interrogate him. There's like an interrogation scene early in this where like he's trying to interrogate Penguin, and he hangs him in a bird cage over a building with a rope, and then paints bird feed onto the ropes so the birds chew through the ropes. It's like that's pretty fucked up, Batman. What the hell are you doing up there? But it's fantastic. I think that is arguably Snyder's best issue of Batman, because it hits you in such a way. It doesn't have action. It has dialogue. It's Batman's internal dialogue with understanding the city, and what it comes down to is he failed the city in every regard because he thinks he knows it and he doesn't. And the issue ends with him landing, and he scares these kids off. And he's like, "No, wait." He's like, "I just want you to talk to me." And they're like, "Really?" Like they're surprised because that's not the Batman that they know. And it's an interlude issue. It could have easily been a throwaway issue, because it does what it boils down to is this kid killed himself basically because he took a drug from Mr. Bloom, who is Gordon, Batman's current nemesis. And he mutated into something. It gives them like X-Men like powers, but then it kills them. So it could have easily been a throwaway issue to be an interlude while you're waiting to see what the hell's happening to Gordon, because he was in a tight spot in his last issue. But Snyder, of course, doesn't take the easy way out with something, and I think it's fantastic. Anyway, that's my Batman interlude for you. So. And please, current viewers, if you have any issue, any comic issue that speaks to you, it doesn't have to be about current political events or current events. Definitely mention that in the comments, mention that in the videos, tweet me at it, and just tell me what you think. If there's been anything you've read, seen anything that really kind of speaks to you in a way that you didn't expect it to originally, definitely let me know. Or definitely let us know, because it's interesting that media is meant to be escapism, but a lot of people don't. That was a bad sentence. Movies, comic books are always thought to be escapist mediums. You read them to get away from the real world, and sometimes you kind of like that Black Mirror show. Sometimes you just have to. Sometimes the creators will shine it back on you and be like, look, this is part of the world that you live in, and you should think about it. Black Mirror is great about that. The title itself is a pun on that, because it's about technology, and the title Black Mirror is about the screens when you turn them off. It's a black mirror to yourself, and it's not necessarily the things reflecting back you want to see. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. I love creators that do way more than the job description. Speaking of creators, Until Dawn just came out the past 3 weeks. I played that through entirely the past couple of days. If any of you guys know me, you know that I'm a massive fan of horror. I love horror books. Well, they don't really have many books, but I love horror books. I love horror games, horror movies. I hate when they're done wrong, which happens frequently. But Until Dawn is interesting because it is a pardon me, because it is a horror more like an interactive horror movie than an actual horror game. And this has been I'm going to put this in the showcase. Oh, we lost a viewer. Damn. Oh, we talk about everybody now, right? But you that derailed me for a hot minute. But Until Dawn is known for being part of a slew of games that are more like interactive cinema, interactive movies than an actual video game. You have these slight choices, like you can persist or talk to somebody, or you can attack or not attack, or you can explore, find things. It's very rudimentary gameplay, and then what it really is a lot of cinematics that kind of push it forward, a lot of quick-time events. If you mash a button, they're going to fall off a ledge or maybe jump to it. But it's just like, and you can affect who lives or who dies, just like a horror movie. And at what point do they live or die, or how do they live or die? And it's part of a slew that includes The Order, includes Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls, where it really removes a lot of the gameplay to where it's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure story, but in video game form. And they've gotten a lot of feedback for that, both good and bad. But it's a trend that the new games have been especially doing. Do you think that's a good or a bad thing for interactive media to remove some of that interactivity?
I don't know.
Heavy subject.
Yeah. Well, you want to keep the suspense in the game, of course, and you need something to build it up. You need that background story or something to build that up and get you into it and to keep you intense. And wow. They should keep it. Keep it in there. Just make it intense. So that way the reader or the player can stay focused into what's going on, and kind of like that game I've been watching, Five Nights at Freddy's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse's familiar with that one. Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's needs no introduction nowadays.
Yeah. I was watching videos on it on YouTube, and the people that were playing it just really kept me in their video alone, and I jumped when the creatures came out, and I wasn't even playing. That's how much it kept me into just to view the game, what they were playing.
I'll tell you how tropey Until Dawn is. It has the obligatory bloody corpse scarecrow jump scare halfway through the game.
Oh, really?
So it definitely had its fair share of it'll make you jump backwards.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good thing. That's what people want. You're gonna play a scary game. You're gonna want something in there that's gonna scare you.
Exactly.
You want it to make you jump.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it fun. And these people that Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say real quick, these people that I was watching play, it made them jump, and then they would laugh about it and be like, they were ready for some more.
Oh, my favorite videos like that are when they play it drunk. I saw a of course you guys have probably heard about PT, the trailer for the Silent Hill game that will never happen, Konami. Thanks for nothing. But one of my favorite ones was watching a bunch of guys play it drunk. And they got scared of everything except what they should be scared of. Like, they got scared of cockroaches on the walls instead of, like, ghosts in the hallways.
Oh my God!
It's like there's a shambling corpse type thing in front of you, and you're scared of a trope of a tribe of cockroaches.
Well,
Herd of cockroaches.
I mean, well, at certain point, if you play enough horror games, I mean, not me, I'm going to be perpetually scared of them until the day I die. But I mean, you get desensitized to like zombies and ghosts and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden, you got a bunch of bugs. You don't see a whole lot of movies with bugs, and suddenly that becomes scary.
Yeah.
I love watching.
And I think that was some of the most twisted stuff. Not to spoil the story in any way in Until Dawn, but I think that was some of the most twisted things. And in the game is not only do you get to like make a bad mistake and somebody gets their head chopped off, but there's also moments in the game, depending on your choices, where it sets up a Saw type trap, and you basically have to decide which of the characters are going to die. And,
wow.
That's pretty twisted because most games won't do that. I don't think I've played any other game that makes you actually do that. Maybe I think there's a part in Far Cry where you have to choose to kill your girlfriend or not, but that's about it.
Oh.
Well, on Grand Theft Auto, you have to make a choice on whether or not you in the new one 5. There's spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
You have 3 endings.
Yes.
It all depends on if you decide to like kill Michael, or is it Michael? No, I think you mark Michael, and then they tell you have to kill one of the other characters. Oh my gosh, Brian's gonna kill me. But but you have to. But in one of them, yeah, you have to kill Michael. Yeah, you have to kill the white guy. Anyway.
You have to kill the white guy.
You don't have to. If you not to, it has an alternative ending.
Mm-hmm. Neat.
So, yeah. The worst ending is if you actually do kill Michael. If you kill Michael, you get the worst ending, in my opinion.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. And Until Dawn.
Thanks for spoiling that for me, Jesse.
It's funny because Until Dawn gives you the tropey people. The black dude did not die in mine. He was not the first. He actually survived. But there are some characters in there, and actually the video I shared, there's one of them right there. It's not him. It's the other one who you absolutely want. There's always that one in a horror movie that you just cannot wait to watch die.
It's true.
There are some playable characters in this game you just cannot wait to watch them die in terrible ways, just like every other horror movie. But it's great. I really want to replay it again. And Radio Free Geek, I'm actually thinking about setting up a Twitch channel and streaming some games every weekend or so. And I really want to replay this, especially during Halloween, where I'm going to write some Listverse articles about like the best horror movies, the best horror comics you should read and watch. I really want to stream Until Dawn and maybe Dead Space, and because I think both of these are absolutely great horror games. And then some are just too damn long. I would love to Twitch Alien Isolation, but that game is 20 hours long.
Is it really?
I would be twitching that game for the whole year.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic, but it goes on for too long because they wanted to give you the alien, the scary running from the alien feel, and then they just keep giving it to you. It's like when you eat ice cream and they just keep giving you buckets of it or something. It's like one thing will kill you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's another discussion too, because they, a lot of people talk about games that don't have a lot in it, because Until Dawn, basically, there's a lot of fixed points. It doesn't give you as much choice and as much freedom as it says it wants to give you, so it doesn't give you as much replayability. But there are games like that in Alien Isolation that they are not Alien Isolation. There are games that don't give you enough, and then there are games like Alien Isolation that give you they give you so damn much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird. It's weird finding a happy medium with things.
Yeah. You know what game that I had been playing that I thought was pretty good. Well, I'm still playing it. I just take my free time with it. It is. Hang on, just a second. I can never remember the full name. Well, it's the Dead Island.
Okay. Is it the first one or?
Well, it just says Dead Island, so I don't know. It could be the first one.
Okay.
It's on the PS3.
Okay. Okay.
But it is actually a pretty good zombie game. I really enjoy it, and it makes me jump. There's some dark buildings you gotta go into, and turn around and bam, there's a zombie right there, chomping away at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that's the best.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things you gotta do. There's you can make a lot of your own homemade weapons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it pretty enjoyable. You don't have a wide selection of guns that you can get. You have to make your own weapons. You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
And you can make them stronger and stuff like that. And that's a really enjoyable game. I like it. I recommend it.
If you like that game, you'd probably love not Dead Island, but Dying Light. It's made by the same studio. It's basically the same thing, except you have except you have Mirror's Edge parkour type stuff.
I've heard about that game. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game. You it has a lot of Dead Island DNA in it, but it's a big city. There are no like travel points with things. You have to run the entire city, and that's where it gets ridiculously hard. But it's great. Maybe the same thing. Dead Island 2 is apparently never ever going to happen because they just ended the development contract with the guys who were working on it, and it's up in the air about if it will ever actually get made. So Dying Light may be it, which I'm okay with. But it's fantastic. All right, so that is all of our news for today. So again, if you guys like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll have an edited video up within the next 2 days to YouTube, looking at plans for where we're going to host. A lot of people will talk about Stitcher and a few other places. I think you basically have to host it to like all of them to get it seen. But if you like it, leave us some comments about how we can make it better, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Great.
All right.
See you, everybody.
Bye.